thanks so much for making time to come here. I know it's Woodlands, you know, wow, I don't know how you guys came here and things of the weather and all that kind of stuff. You know, call a spade, you know, it's far, but I think after today, I hope that you guys will come back to Woodlands, because if you look at basically what is in store, the people, the talent, the facilities, I think this is part of the reason why we're doing this. So let me clarify why I'm doing this. Okay, so I have a role at RP. Okay, I'm the chairman of their advisory committee for the School of Technology of the Arts, Media and Design. So for any of you guys who know STA, STA was known as STA for many, many years, School of Technology for the Arts. We actually changed the name to include Media and Design deliberately last year, because we think that it needed to be a little bit more, we needed to cast the net a little bit more. Right? And it's been proven, you know, in terms of just the recent numbers that's come in terms of graduate, the applicants that's come in and things like that. You know, STA, in terms of school, in terms of media and design courses, is number 2 amongst all the polys, you know, which is a recent result that has been polled. So I think we're doing something right. But one of the key things we want to do is this. We want Republic Poly to be a center for continuing education, particularly for the media industry, especially during such a time where it's really, really challenging. And also, as you can see, basically the topic in terms of what we're doing. So this is one of the first where we have not done this for a while. In fact, I don't think we've done this in this scale. And I think this is one of the start of many that we want to engage with industry, because I think the school can do what it does, but the collaborations with the industry is going to be critical. And I think if you look at the selection of the panel that I've got, can we put the panel slide on? It was carefully curated. You realize I didn't have an IMDA person, although I have IMDA people in the audience, which is great, Yati. But it is what it is. It's ground up. It is industry up. So we need to talk about things from the industry. I don't count Rita as government, although she's from Mediacorp. But I think it's important that we hear from the ground up perspective and we take initiative as an industry. Okay, and we talk about things that is actually very, very relevant today, some of the disruptions and a lot of concerns, actually. So without further ado, Jasmine Ng, welcome. She's an Executive Director for Singapore Motions Association of Professionals. We got her in as our guest of honor today for the Symbiosis, which is the graduate show, which I urge all of you to go and see some of the students' projects works that's out there. But obviously for her, please see. It was great for her to represent, you know, as a guest of honor for this event, to really talk to the students, you know, about where the industry is going and things like that. So thanks, Jasmine. Jeevan Nathan, please. So Jeevan is the president of AIPRO, Association of Independent Producers. Very important role, and you realize that we did not get them just purely in their individual capacity, but also key associations that's involved, because whatever that we are going to do initiatives, I think we need to talk about it as a community, not just siloed from the school's perspective or from an industry perspective in that sense. I think associations is a very, very important body that represents voices. Rita? She's a lead content commissioning Mediacorp, very important person. So please go and see her after the discussion and ask her what's going on, who's commissioning what and things like that. Sorry to put you on the spot, Rita. But progressive person in terms of having a pulse on what's happening with the industry, which I felt was relevant to get her on board. And Thean-Jeen, TJ, better known as TJ. So TJ, I can tell a lot of stories about, but I won't, because we go back a very, very long way. But you want to find out more about him, you talk to him personally later. But he's a Wayu Films, but he's also an Exco from the Screenwriters Association. Now, and thank you so much, because when this idea was hatched between myself and the school STA with the media and the leadership team, we were thinking how we were going to go about doing this. And I think one of the first things that we said was, look, let's get the associations involved, because the associations is the community that all of us practitioners, depending on what we do, belong to. And I think that's the very, very important part of that whole ecosystem. I started messaging all of them, and I'm glad within half an hour and an hour, I got a panel on board. And I think they are doing it because, not that they have a lot of time. I know he's in the middle of a shoot. Rita is perpetually on call 24/7. Jeevan, same thing. Jasmine, they all have their own things to do. But the reason why they are here is because they believe in what we do. They believe in the industry. And I think, and they also recognize that there are some serious challenges that's going on in the industry. So I think for today, you know, we are going to call a spade, right? And talk about things. And I would like to encourage also, I think there is going to be a QR code. Ask me a question that's going to be moderated in terms of what you can type for some questions and things like that. Please don't ask questions like, when is my project going to be commissioned, Rita? Okay, so she's not going to answer you. But please ask any questions that might be relevant to what you hear today in terms of how we are going to navigate this, this talk. And I know we only have 45 minutes, which I've used up already 10, gibbering on and on. So let me just go straight into it. Oh, one more plug-in, sorry. Sorry, Dr. Gan, I don't mean to put you in a spot. But can you please stand up, please, Dr. Gan, because I think people should know Dr. Gan. Dr. Gan was the first, she's very uncomfortable. She's not prepared. I never told her I was going to do this. She was the first director of the school. She started the School of Technology of the Arts in Republic Poly. And she's also playing a very important IMDA role in terms of being the program advisory for English content as well. So if you had any English content that was not shown for whatever reason, maybe you can ask her. She'll tell you why. Okay. Dr. Gan, thank you. It's an honor to have you. Let me start off. We will start off with, let me see. So I'm going to talk about them, and from their association perspective, what is the single biggest challenge that they think is facing the media industry today? Okay. Jeevan?
Hello? Okay. Thanks, Freddie. Well, I think in representing the Association of Independent Producers, which essentially are small, medium businesses and SMEs, I think it's been an ongoing conversation, especially in the last 18 months to 2 years. And the biggest bugbear actually is, you know, if I were to use the thing about navigating currents, is the lack of currents in our ecosystem. There's a lethargy, I think, that the producers, the production companies feel across the board, like from commissioning, number of projects that are being commissioned, project briefs that are going out there. This is not limited to television projects. I think it's commercial projects, government agency projects. There's been a massive contraction from our member pool, at least that's the feedback. And that's something that's kind of worrying in the far horizon. And I think AIPRO is looking at how do we navigate that? How do we, you know, hedge our bets now, but also plan ahead for the future? Yeah.
Just as a context, Jeevan, your association represents how many members?
Right now we are about 70 odd members, yeah.
Of production companies?
Production companies, yes.
And content creators?
Yep, you know, and we represent TV producers, producers in the online digital space, doing corporate videos as well as commercial work. And not just limited to that, but we also have production support producers that are in there. Second
context, now when you say that there's a lack, now has that been something that has just happened? Is it happened after COVID? Before COVID, what was it like? Was the sentiment, was the economy better? There was more work and things like that, or was COVID a big kind of a stunter?
I think, I mean, you know, prior to COVID, pre-COVID, it was definitely a vibrant scene. And I think disruption in a vibrant scene is maybe a bit more easily navigatable. During COVID, coming out of it, I think the associations all rallied at that time, and we did put forth a good push. And I think we came out of the gate maybe way too fast, too eager, and, you know, like maybe too ambitious. Okay. And I think at that rate, you know, that rocket fuel just kind of burnt out, and we started to see those effects. Okay. And I think we see it globally. I just came back from LA, and, you know, Hollywood feels like a shadow of itself right now, and looking at Singapore, it makes me feel like we are at least a bit lucky. We are vibrant. We're still in this region that has a bit of vibrancy, and we are moving, but not at a pace that maybe our producers are accustomed to, and maybe the industry and the ecosystem.
So I guess you can kind of sum up to say that this is a reflection on what's been happening with companies globally, consolidations. There's a subscriber war that has led to the days where everybody thought streaming was number one. Nobody was commissioning anything in terms of feature films and things like that. So it's all trickled down, right, in terms of basically the contraction for companies and the appetite for them to be able to commission content compared to what they were previously, Can I defer to Jasmine for maybe what, from the Singapore Association of Motion Pictures, what would be your key concern, which I would think that what Jeevan has mentioned would be, but something else?
Yeah, so with the Singapore Association of Motion Picture Professionals, SAMPP, SAMPP, and points to Freddie for getting most of it right, is that, following from what Jeevan is saying, there have been so many, there's so many kind of like different tides and waves and forces at play. And I think, yes, it was very exhilarating where, everybody, during the pandemic started getting subscriptions, were going online. There was a lot of commissions and such. And then it's all of a sudden that that bubble has kind of burst, but it's not bursting in isolation. It's bursting in isolation with everybody actually wanting more content than ever before, but now it's in form of TikTok, it's in form of all these different meme videos and all kinds of things in very, very different forms that, we would have needed to contend with anyway, but now the other wave coming towards us is that of Gen AI, and that's something historically nobody, we've already rode the tide of analog to digital, figuring out linear, non-linear, OTT, internet, all that. We've done that all before. We've been around the block and we've conquered all of that. But this time around, I don't think historically within our living lives, we've never faced anything like this before. And so, hence, what do? We don't just, quiver and shake in our shoes, but we need to be talking together. We need to be excited about the tools, but at the same time, we need to be talking about how some of us will be using these tools, how it can expand and can be ambitious of what we do, but at the same time with acknowledgement that all that material needs to be copyrighted. Yeah. It was properly licensed so that you can properly monetize from it. It needs to be talked about in a way where then for those of us who may be completely replaced, you can't use the tool because the tool is going to replace you altogether, then what should we then retrain and such? So there's a lot to deal with, but we need to do this together. Yeah.
Thank you. TJ, you want to put a plug on this?
Well, speaking from the perspective of a screenwriter, I think, and to echo what Jeevan and Jasmine have both said, I think writers have always been slightly lower down the food chain compared to production companies, production company owners and stuff. So any waves or currents obviously impacts the writing community a lot more, and the challenge is also intensified, I think, because of, first of all, I think to follow from Jasmine, the democratization of screenwriting, because right now everybody is a writer. There's no resume or barrier to entry to do a TikTok video. So that's number one. The second obviously is Gen AI, but I think in terms of as far as the writing community is concerned, I think Gen AI right now is actually before in doing research for this talk, I actually went to ChatGPT and I said, how are you going to affect screenwriting? And I got an essay, which sort of made me realize, actually, if that's the whole purpose, actually none of us need to be here, because we could all just whip out our phones, open up ChatGPT and ask the same question. And it even asked me back. It said, "What do you think of AI? Do you see it as an opportunity or a threat?" And Okay, and my answer is not kind of publishable in a public context, lah. To which it said, you are entitled to your own opinion.
Okay.
But, yes. But that is sort of the wave of the future. But I mean, what we can tell you from what I guess I can say from a personal perspective is, yes, it is scary. I'm scared. But I get scared 6 times a year. I got scared when I started off in this industry and we were shooting film.
Yes.
And people
16
said,
mil and 35 mil
people
film.
said film is not gonna exist in by the 2000s, and some of us were like, no, it will stay forever, and it didn't. And then there was tape, and then there was digital, and now there's AI. So I think as far as screenwriting is concerned, if when I have chats, I mean, with screenwriters, I think the question is, yes, we might not be the highest on the totem pole, but the question is now, how do we pivot to get into a better pole position? And I guess we can speak a bit more about that later.
So just to recall, concerns about jobs, opportunities, productions, commissions, technology on the front of AI, and even new technologies in terms of film production and things like that, virtual production. The queen of virtual production from IMDA is somewhere here. Where is she? There you go. Yati. Okay, but again, it is uncharted territory, and a lot of us are learning as well, but it is new technology, trying to see whether that could be the differentiating factor for us. Important thing is to try different things, to try and see how we can go. Rita, let's hear from the platform perspective, and the broadcaster perspective.
Yeah, hi everyone. So Mediacorp is very big, right? So I'm actually from the network side of the business. And our North Star is engaging everyone every day. So this sounds really simple, but really very difficult to achieve. So what we do, we study the whole gamut of platforms out there that people can consume content. We look at trends, we look at competition, we look at what kind of content our audience is demanding, would want to watch, how do we engage them. So that's and come up with strategies, right, and execution plans to achieve them. So from where we sit, the biggest challenge is really the fragmentation of the platforms today, and you see that social media platforms is rising in a big way. It is a big force that we pre-COVID we already knew social media is here to stay, and it's everywhere, right? Everybody's on it. But I think during the COVID period, it changed consumers' or audience consumption habits in a way that we are now feeling the full force of after. And it accelerated, to Jasmine's point earlier, we all know the force of it, but really COVID accelerated, stepped the pedal, and pushed it forward so much. TikTok, I think it's not wrong to say almost all our youths, maybe, our younger generation is on this platform. The kind of short duration watching is encouraging a very, very different kind of viewing habits altogether. Maybe now, what in comparison is long form, which is like, an hour of a video series or even a 3-hour film is too long for our viewers. They have no patience to sit through that. They would rather just swipe videos after videos. So I think our challenge is, one, trying to, achieve our mandate of engaging everyone every day through the variety of platforms out there, right? Because when we say everyone, it is from 4 years old to 80 years old. And you can expect the very different kind of demands. And also, how do we deepen the engagement? Because now it's not just enough to have people watch your content. Watching your content, it's very one way, right? With the competition we are facing, I can watch you, I can watch what you dish out to me, but I can also don't. I have plenty other choices to turn to. It's not like in the past where choices are very limited. So what can make you go back to or stay loyal to a channel or a certain piece of content? What makes you do that? We need to look at really deeper engagement to let our audience stay and to retain their eyeballs. So that's also a very, very big challenge that we're facing today.
Okay. So, brief snapshots because we have only 45 minutes. But the idea here at the end of the day is that we want to do a series of continuing talks, and maybe really deep dive on very specific areas as we move along. So you watch the space with RP in terms of what we're trying to do. At this juncture right now, let me just maybe provoke some thoughts in here. Can I play the clip can we go to the clip section? Yes. Can we play this FMCG reel? I had the permission of the person to play this. He's not here. He's supposed to be here today, but he last minute couldn't make it. But let's have a look. Thank you. There he is. Daniel Yam, who we know. 100% Gen AI in a very short period of time. When he put this out, he was telling me that people who shoot commercials and stuff like that would know this. Where's the food stylist job going to be? Where is the cinematographer's role going to be in this world? It was quite funny because we were talking about AI, and I want Jasmine to talk a little bit about AI in terms of engaging what are maybe some of the frameworks that we should be working within and things like that. But I heard a funny story the other day that as we toe the line, people's jobs are on the line here. Gen AI, as far as we're concerned, we use for concept ideation. We show our clients an idea of what that sport's going to look like. Then when it comes to the execution, we get the physical crew to get involved in things like that. The client saw the ideation concept and said, that's what I want, that's exactly what I want, that's it. And I don't need to spend money on it. That's what's actually happening today in our industry, which is quite scary because, at the end of the day, everybody's looking at their bottom line and things like that. And the power of Gen AI is coming out with stuff like this. Where's the relevancy right now, right? So these are real tough questions that we need to talk about, and maybe I will go in more onto strategies and what are some of the initiatives that the associations have been thinking about in terms of dealing with their respective challenges. Maybe I'll go to on the AI front. Jasmine, can you talk a little bit about what the association, because I know you guys have been active in terms of trying to work in this area.
Yeah, but maybe before I get into what are some of the initiatives we've been working on with all the other associations, is that, like we said, film, TV, and everything, it's the history of film and TV, media, it's all about different technologies, but it serves the story, right? But when the technology replaces the storyteller, is that a problem? Maybe so much of what we put out is so disposable, isn't it? Oh yeah, UN, sustainable goals that we don't waste, resources, hey, yay for carbon credits and everything, that we're not, going to all this trouble creating reality just for a 30-second commercial, which now is even reduced to a shorter life cycle. You don't even show it for more than a month. You show it for a week and then you got to churn out new stuff, right? If not every day. We need to talk about all of that. We also need to talk about how when somebody says, hey, I made it with Gen AI, did you? Now, a year ago, you needed to prompt and you need to do a bit of work. Now you just feed examples and it's coming up with approximation of somebody else's work. So what you did do is you pressed the button and the AI had stolen before. Unless it's Gen AI that already has, copyright licensed, and and that's it again, because then we use it as a tool and it's properly licensed, and people whose works were ingested, at least they get some compensation for that. That's something else we need to talk about. Or maybe that horse is bolted out of the stables, there's nothing we can do about that. However, different jurisdictions, different governments are trying to deal with that. What we are trying to do within Singapore is not wait, because we have to wait for, we have our unique circumstances. So SAMPP, along with AIPRO, along with Singapore Screenwriters Association Singapore, along with Singapore Society of Cinematographers, along with the Actors Society, won't somebody think of the actors who 1 year ago already lost 30% of voiceover jobs? At this point now, they probably lost like 99.99% of their voiceover jobs. We need to get into a conversation, and we started doing that, and hopefully working with IMD and the other government agencies, NACs and such, we've come up with a code of best practices. We are drafting it, and we're hoping that we can codify it. It should be a living document, because we don't know what's going to happen. Is this sea change happening in 6 months, 12 months? We don't know. But we need to talk about how, when we're not saying Gen AI good or bad. We're not saying it's a tool or it's not. It hits different people differently. When you say a camera person, in events camera person, it's going to not impact them as much, because live events, you still have to cover that. A television commercial cinematographer who gets paid, thousands and thousands of dollars for a 2-day shoot is also may not be impacted, but somebody who does corporate videos or mid-range TVCs will be impacted. So there's so many things to talk about. We just need to get going, and that's why we're glad that even though there are associations who themselves have said, okay, actually it's not hit us so much yet, but we know, let's work on it together, because it's about having the larger picture. And when we say larger picture, it's not something that only IMD has to deal with. We talked about meeting with NAC, because we said, hey, a lot of the theatre actors, their passion is in theatre, but actually what pays the bills is actually in TV and media, because they make their bread and butter doing, television commercials, voiceover, corporate videos, or billboard campaigns. If that collapses, these are the people on the other side, for the other hat they wear, that's going to be impacted too. Yeah. How do we solve this? I don't know. We just need to talk now,
Absolutely.
Man.
And I think the worst thing we can be doing is to be passive about it and not try, because you don't know where you're going to go. I'll give you a simple example. When we're coming out of COVID phase 1, just as an example, a lot of people on this panel will know this. Media as a contributor to the GDP, we don't move the needle that much, honestly. So when it comes to activities, we were like sidetracked film phase 1 in terms of what was allowed. And when we had a sniff in terms of what was allowed, it was 5 crew per location. I don't think there's that many weddings that the crew can go and cover. 5 crew. But this was an example of the industry banding together, because we attended and moderated one of the biggest Zoom conferences. It was 1,000 people from every aspect of the creative value chain, from writers to actors to posts to everyone. And we came up with an 80-page safety mandatory COVID document that we presented. And we asked for minimum 30 crew per location. And we were very fortunate that we got that. Because if we didn't do that collectively as an industry, a lot of our industry practitioners would have undertaken other jobs, which unfortunately right now a lot are already taking alternative jobs as a means of earning income. But as an industry, while we do what we do and siloed, we are busy doing our own thing. Strength is in numbers. And I think when we are facing a situation like this now, I think this is what we talk about in terms of we need to talk about it. And we need to hunt in packs. Okay, so everyone here has a part to play, when the time comes to contribute to your own future and your fate. I want to talk to Jeevan and TJ a little bit about, from the production perspective, what can be done in terms of stirring potentially more opportunities. Of course, we know that the broadcasters are now being very selective about what they are prepared to commission and things like that. But this is a case also of, do we work only within Singapore? Because our market, it's so small. Now, where does regional collaboration come into play? Is there a space for that? From the perspective of IMDA, and I can speak from that perspective because we are a recipient on a lot of the grants which is out there for us to go and try and do regional collaborations to get activities going and things like that, whether it's in feature films or series and things like that. It's a very real thing. And actually the grants itself does come in as a very strategic catalyst to get projects commissioned. And every country in the region are also offering incentives and things like that. But just from your production perspective, in terms of the challenges, you guys operate largely domestically, but also starting to operate outside of. Any thoughts about that you want to share in terms of strategies?
All right. Thank you. Well, I think on an association level, I think I'll start there. You know, we have producers, who are doing a lot of work domestically, but also now looking abroad into the region to survive, actually. You know, co-production as a means to survive, just because Singapore's market is small in that sense. And with funding and these initiatives that are out there, I do know producers and production companies who are tapping into them to kind of use it. But within AIPRO, I think there's a polarization of that also, you know, and hearing them out, it feels like it's not a one-pronged approach. It's a multi-pronged approach that we should take. And while we are hedging those bets for international work to get producers out there, getting them working in bigger markets, learning from different experts and people in that field, that cross-pollination is so important. We cannot overlook the fact that we need to still grow and groom our local market. You know, it can come in the form of education, it can come in the form of, I think what Jasmine said, it's that Singapore story, right? Like us producers and media professionals, we are gatekeepers of that Singapore brand. It's almost like national defense. Like if we let it go away or we let it get so fragmented, then how do we control that? Not control like to censor, but how do we manage that voice? You know, how do we look after that, like what's important to us in our national identity, to our cultures. So AIPRO's, I guess, in that conflict. Like, you know, when we bring our conversations to the government agencies, it's about that. Like, you know, whether it's MDDI, IMDA, how do we do, and how do we look at that multi-pronged approach? So, I mean, to your question, definitely, I would say that, but I think we also worry about the EDU side, you know, like us as production houses, if things just all shrink here and we are working abroad, what does that mean also for the next generation that's coming out of schools? Yeah. I think schools have a very strong voice in this conversation, or should have a very strong voice in this, because what does it mean to all the media schools, all the graduates that are coming out there if, you know, oh, you know, I'm using AI now, or I'm working in a silo now, you know, or I'm working internationally, and I much rather work with the international people, then it doesn't bode well for our ecosystem. And I think AIPRO members at heart are still very nostalgic, very romantic people, passionate people in that sense, and they don't want to let that go away. You know, like they understand disruption, and they are a scrappy bunch, and they would probably roll with it, you know, in whatever way. But I think as much as we can, we want to put in that fight. We want to make sure that conversation is heard and that plan is drawn out. Like very much like what you said about phase one, you know, like during COVID and what you guys drew up. I think even policy is very important, you know, something that is also long-term. I think that's something our Exco stands often is, one, we need to look at consistency, a momentum that pushes us forward, but two is also look at having a long runway to let this germinate and work. Yeah.
TJ?
I think there's quite a lot to unpack, actually. it's also a balance, I think, of short-term versus long-term, because regional co-productions do have a lot of potential, but I think as anyone who's ever entered a regional co-production will know, there are a lot of moving parts, and it's a journey. It's a marathon, not so much a sprint. So the question, then the question is, what is the short term? And I think, I mean, maybe one aspect of the industry, yes, we can build. I mean, I think we can build best standards, best practices. We can build standards. You know, the associations can all kind of rally together. But I think if the general, population or the general industry is waiting for movement from the associations, it's going to be a lot of people sort of waiting for something to happen. So the question then is, I guess, in terms of like for writers, I said earlier, I mean, how do you kind of move into a better pole position? And I think in the current climate, I think, writers, for example, have always been kind of, I mean, we wait for this project to get off the ground, we wait for that project to get off the ground, but what if we pivoted to being, what we pivoted to kind of moving the projects ourselves? That's number one. On another level, I think we are quite focused on talking about what the industry needs, but I think that it needs to come to a point where we kind of ask ourselves who is our audience and what their needs are. Because, I mean, if you look at some of the examples of neighboring industries, I mean, the content landscape, the boom of the content landscape has been largely, driven by the fact that audiences have started to not, consume, everything from Hollywood, but they've started to kind of appreciate homegrown content.
Yep.
So the question is, while we are engaging, at an institutional level for standards, for best practices, and trying to grow the industry on that level for the professionals, I think there also has to be one aspect where we are looking at how do we swing the audience around.
Sure.
So that Singapore's top 10 on Netflix is not a Korean series followed by a Hollywood, an American show followed by something from Japan and something from India.
Sure. I think the underlying really with all these currents and I think we're being hit left, right, center with all kinds of pressures and things like that. I think the one thing that I think this industry has is about resilience, right? I think that's something that I know you said we battle on the ground, we are scruffers, we survive somehow, okay? And I think this will continue to permeate, but of course I think it needs to be a little bit more of an organized survival, because what the landscape out there right now and the pressure points are certainly beyond a single entity to be able to deal with. At this juncture, maybe Rita, I want to give you that space. Also, I'm cognizant of timing because actually I only have 5 minutes, but and it's not all doom and gloom. It doesn't sound like all doom and gloom. It's not meant to be that, right? It's more to be just being very open and call a spade, but what are the actions? What are some of the initiatives that's being done and things like that? But also now, what are some of the challenges that you talked about, and how is potentially Mediacorp looking at in terms of its content strategy as some examples? Maybe that's your cue for that. Ting-Xiang, stand by for the clips. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so first, I actually want to write on what TJ said about hoping that on Netflix, we don't just see the Korean or the American titles or the China titles. I think if you go on Netflix today, for everyone who has the app, maybe go take a look at it. In first place is actually Mediacorp's Emerald Hill. Sorry, I just had to do a plug-in.
Yes.
So, yeah, this title in a way is, in a lot of ways, is a breakthrough for us. For those of you who are not so aware, Emerald Hill is a spin-off from our very successful Little Nyonya series 15 years ago. We took a very long time to, bring back this very popular IP that everyone said, when are you bringing back? We get asked all these questions all the time. And, when we embarked on this a few years ago, it was just script first, and then, later on, everything then fell in place. And of course, we were disrupted by COVID as well. But really, really happy. And now the way we see content, it's not only just for our platforms. For the free, episodes, it's actually, Netflix and our own MeWatch premium subscription goes first. Netflix is in tandem with our release. So we're not just protective of our own platforms anymore. I think when we look at platforms, it's a very holistic view, and we see content as where we need to go where our audiences are. And this is a nice segue for me into earlier on the point I made about social media platforms. So, we're all there, right? You are either on FB, on IG, or TikTok, or all three, which a lot of cases, most of us are. So maybe I just want to show you, I think in the interest of time, perhaps just one. Can you bring up the Falling in Love with CEO's Son? Okay, so this title kind of says it all, right? Just start playing from this episode. These are just 3 1-minuters. Yeah.
经理，我爸让我接手公司的事，请你暂时不要告诉大家。我不想让同事们知道我是总裁的儿子。
哦，没问题。OK， 这个 project 要怎么分工合作啊
？Boss， 我觉得这个 project 我和泽亮搭档最合适，我们可以连夜把策划方案给写出来。
OK， 交给你们啦，好好干啊！
哎，还在等我啊？走，送你回家。
我们今天可能需要 OT 久一点。
啊？哦，那需要我等你吗？
哦，不用，你先回家吧，拜拜。
哦，好，明天见。你跟品卷，
我们只是同事。
经理，我爸让我接手公司的事情，麻烦你暂时先不要告诉大家，我不想同事们知道我是总裁的儿子。
我一定要让泽亮爱上我。
Are you hooked? That's the whole strategy, right?
Okay, I think in the interest of time, I won't play through the other clips. I actually prepared another title, which if you are interested, you can go to our Mediacorp TikTok account. It's all published there. It's Sunny Side Up, Break the Silence. So it's a spin-off from our Sunny Side Up long-form drama. 2 teenage characters, and actually it was commissioned to deliver a social message about domestic violence. So this series, the 9331, Falling in Love with CEO's Son, right now is doing very, very well for us. I think on TikTok, we've chalked up more than 8 million views, and on IG, over 4 million. And for Sunny Side Up, Break the Silence, just that 10 episodes, short episodes of 2 minutes each, is giving us more than 8 million views combined, YouTube and TikTok views. So, yeah. So, do we have time for one? Okay, just maybe the first clip.
Bree! Do not touch me.
Sorry.
Go home, Brayden.
What happened? Why did you...
Why? I did not give you permission to tell your family my life story or something, much less that I'm your girlfriend.
I didn't. I'm sorry they're upset, but my family's harmless. We're just close like that. We talk about so many things. I don't understand.
Not everyone's family is like yours.
Well, I know you.
You know nothing, Brayden Heng.
Brayden, why are you not eating your breakfast? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tell. I didn't expect that this would...
Promised.
I mean, technically, I promised not to tell your mom. Okay, I'm sorry. I broke my promise.
Just got too excited.
She hasn't been coming to school.
Huh? Since that day?
Teachers say she's sick, but
Do you know where she might be? Maybe you can go and meet her.
I tried. I don't know where she stays. She hasn't been going to the usual places. I don't even know why she got so upset. But whatever. I obviously messed up.
Hey, no, I did. Okay, let me see what I can do. In the meantime, can you please eat your breakfast?
How?
Chandra and Hafiq. I didn't tell them much, just roughly when you met her. They both heard that there's only one unit in Sunny Place at that time that got new occupants.
Thank you.
This video alone gave us 1.2 million views on TikTok. Yeah. So, okay, maybe I just, going back to Falling in Love CEO's Son, microdrama is a very new genre that we're experimenting, given that everyone is on socials, TikTok especially. Falling in Love with CEO's Son was our first microdrama, and it evolved out of a strategy whereby we wanted our audio personalities to front content, because we realized that they have very, very deep connection with listeners. And beyond that, they also have a very strong fan base. So you don't usually see the audio personalities from 933 act that much. So it was really, a first also for the personalities on that front. And when we went on this route, we also were, thinking, okay, I'm not sure if some of you have, heard of the microdrama wave from China and how this format itself is catching on so fast, because the pace of storytelling, the high emotional impact and points and hooks in every episode at the end of it really draws viewers in and makes them want to binge the entire series. So it is this formula that has propelled this particular genre to such heights that I think in the China industry alone, I had the pleasure to join IMD on a learning trip, and we understood from some of the professors there that the kind of revenue generated is already surpassing films. Such short-form genre is already surpassing films in terms of revenue generated. So you can imagine the shifts in the commercial dollars towards the genre, and it's set to grow even more. For us, it's about engagement. It's about connecting with our audience at a platform that they are, as I mentioned earlier, engaging everyone every day. So when we see a shift in our audience consumption habits and where they are, we have to move as well. So these are some of the new genres that we experimented with. For Sunny Side Up, we were very fortunate to have MSF as a client who wanted to come in and convey this message. And we thought, okay, from an existing IP, which is our long-form drama, Sunny Side Up, could we, do a spin-off? And it worked really, really well for us. The two teenage characters in the show, I think they held that 10 episodes very well, and people were even interested in budding romance, and some even asked whether or not there's going to be a continuation, will they really, be together, there's that interest over there. So I think, it's not only just the views, but, the kind of engagement, the comments that, our viewers leave behind on our TikTok accounts, right, also shows that they're very vested in the content. So I think, yes, the media landscape is moving very fast, and the platforms are not going to go away. The social media platforms are not going to go away, and it's only going to push, especially TikTok, it's only going to push people to, content very instantaneously, or be able to consume them so quickly, and if it doesn't catch their attention, they will just swipe it away. But this habit here is something that we need to move our content production towards, right? Not to say that the other forms of content will cease to exist. I think it will become a state whereby there is something for everyone. Yeah, but we just cannot ignore this force.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's the monetizing model for that? Is that subscription-based, advertiser-driven, and things like that?
The microdrama landscape in China is very subscription-based. They invest a lot of money to market the clips. So they even go down to cutting or editing clips according to target audience. So say, for example, they are targeting female P35 to 50. They will edit parts of the drama that appeal to this target audience. And when I say edit some of these clips, it's no less than 100. We're talking about hundreds of clips flooding the market based on social media marketing. I mean, on the Meta platforms and on TikTok platforms, you can do audience profiling and target them. So they will roll out these clips and they will get audiences hooked. They will play, they will have maybe 7 episodes. And then at the 7th episode with the biggest hook, that's when you get a message to subscribe. And most of the time, okay, at least in Singapore, what we are used to is more app-based subscription. A few of these platforms are like DramaBox, Serial Plus. You can go check them out on App Store. You can download and you can see the kind of dramas that they offer. But the hook, in fact, when they produce the content, they actually deliberately write it such that at episode 7 or 10, which after a lot of experimentation is kind of like the optimal point where the audiences are vested enough to subscribe. And it is at this point that the script writers will work in a huge hook that really makes you want to sign up and find out more about the drama. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of you, after watching that Falling in Love with CEO's Son, feel like, hey, you actually want to find out more. What is this girl scheming, right? Even though maybe in your mind it'd be like, maybe it's just slapstick drama and all that, but there is that curiosity. And can you imagine if I continue to bombard you with another 6 more episodes and come out with an even stronger hook at the 7th or the 10th episode? I think it's enough to push you over the cliff. Yeah. And that subscription revenue is what's driving this genre really big in China.
We haven't even started to scratch the surface. But as I mentioned, I think, first and foremost, can we give a round of applause for our esteemed panelists? Because I think what has been said today is extremely relevant, but the conversation needs to carry on. And I think RP would want to be wanting to create more such platforms to be able to do this. So thank you so much for your time. You know what? I don't even have time to take questions and answers. Are there any questions? No, nobody. There are lots of questions. Lots of questions. Oh wow! How much time do we have? Okay, should we attempt? Do we have time? Okay, let's try. Since. How can Singapore win big budget projects and compete against the massive subsidies and tax incentives that other countries offer? Okay. And then the other one is, to all panelists, if you were handed a magic wand to improve the way industry is, what is the first thing you would do and why? Okay. And last one, it seems like if we try to follow global formats, we're always one step behind. Why are we not working to focus on local differences that separates our content from the fatiguing global content? There's more questions, but you're curated this 3, is it? Or just the first 3? legit 3. What, the rest is not? I see, okay. Okay, I'll tell you what. So let me attempt at the first one because I'm fighting on that front every day. The second and the third, can the panel just talk about it and then see how we go? Okay, how can Singapore win big budget projects and compete against the massive subsidies and tax incentives? Coming from the perspective, I don't know why I'm standing up, but maybe I'm getting excited. But so I will share a little bit just from the fact that we had co-produced Agent 47, Crazy Rich Asians, Westworld. Now, I was a local co-producer for that, and first and foremost, if you look at all three, one thing was very clear. The script had Singapore in it because it was very natural. Okay? Agent 47, the action moved from Berlin to Singapore, cosmopolitan. Crazy Rich Asians, I don't need to say why. Westworld, they were looking for something very futuristic, utopia, future, the future of the world, you know, that sort of a thing. It has to be in the script first before they can even think about. They won't just come just because you got incentives. The creative will decide whether this is going to work and whether the landscape is going to work. Now, when you talk about how we can win big budgets, big budget projects can compete against massive subsidies and tax incentives, any film that comes to Singapore is not going to come just for the incentives. Because our incentives are also capped to a certain percentage of Singapore qualifying spend and things like that. And these physical production guys in the US studios, they all know that. The point is very simple. If we can get some subsidies, it'll help. But it needs to work for the narrative first. So the creative narrative needs to work in that sense. So there are projects that we are always competing, okay? And in all honesty, when you talk about incentives, everybody talks about what Malaysia is offering or what Indonesia is not offering anything, right? What Thailand is offering. These are the more competing Southeast Asian regions that we want to talk about. And in all honesty, the subsidies at the Southeast Asian level is quite competitive, actually. The only disadvantage that we have, I suppose at the end of the day, is our cost in Singapore is high compared to all the other places. So then it really comes down and boils down to the fact that if the narrative says that I want to shoot it in a beautiful, natural, nature and cosmopolitan blend, which Singapore was the reason why Westworld shot for 12 days. In fact, Jonathan Nolan wanted to shoot only 3 days. But in honesty, I fed him chili crabs, I fed him nasi goreng, I fed him chicken rice. He fell in love with the place. STB was asking me how did we manage to get him to shoot from 3 days to 12 days and write Singapore into the script? And I said the chicken rice did it. The creative director comes in and he experiences Singapore. So the tech recce's, when it happens, it's a critical part also in terms of convincing any filmmaker why they should be shooting in Singapore. It's not just the aesthetics of locations and vibes and things like that. They need to feel the place. And our filmmaking thing is an experience at every level. From us being able to communicate well, the communication ticks the box. For us, you know, in terms of just the convenience of traveling from one point to another point, in Singapore, we take less than an hour compared to all these places. So there are things like this that matters, right? So those are the kind of things that, you know, would help in terms of attracting international shows here. Okay, I mean, there was a show that was just shot recently, a HBO show as well, and it was very specific in terms of the locations that they're looking for and things like that. So the narrative obviously needs to play a huge part in terms of determining that. The incentives is the bonus. They're not coming just because of the incentives. It can never ever be that case, right? So Singapore needs to be relevant. Okay, next question. Sorry, I hope I've answered that question. How are we ensuring diverse? Oh, no. Is that the second question? Which question am I going for? Sorry. We'll take one more question. Sorry, just in the interest of time. Which one do you all want to answer? Sorry.
Well, Freddie is looking.
Yeah.
I also want to say it also requires us to make sure that we've got crew who are top notch.
Yes.
And continue to work.
Yes.
And that if they're falling out of the industry because they're not finding work,
Yes.
by the time the Hollywood production comes here, then we don't have
course.
the, the level of, so there's all these things that need to happen in
It's true.
tandem. Yeah.
It was very hard to convince Fox International Pictures when we did
And location permits.
Agent 47 on our local crew. Because our local crew cost was quite close to what they were used to paying. And what track record did we have? Nothing. But as we went on with Agent 47 and then Equals and then Crazy Rich Asians and then HBO, now there's no longer an issue. Because the crew is expected to have that experience already garnered. One more question. Which one do we want to take? Anyone from the audience that wants to answer? Michael, what do you want? The first question, sorry, can you go back up?
The question was actually if you were given a magic wand, what was the one thing that you would like to do to improve the industry and why?
Magic wand.
I want to say I don't think we need a magic wand. I think there's something that's already tools that we have and it's where we want to put our energies, right? I think we need to have a new social compact, or not even new, a social compact with our audiences. I think too many of us, even within the industry and within the schools, if you say, oh, what's the last Singapore show you watch? You can name everything else and, on Netflix or whatever, but, and yes, with works like Emerald Hill and everything coming up, that might be more common. But if we're so used to being a country that your knee-jerk reaction towards everything is like, yeah, I don't watch Singapore shows. Oh, yeah, I don't listen to Singapore music. Oh, I read, but I don't read Singapore writers. And and although we say this all the time, we need to actually say, okay, it's fine that you don't like, but actually, why don't you like? Can we break down what it is? And if the budgets are always like, okay, Singapore is too expensive, our audience size is too small, the audience doesn't care about all that. They just see that and go like, how come it doesn't look like this other show, like the Korean shows that spend how many millions on one episode, And we need to fight. We need to have a fairer fight, and we need to put our resources into that. So we need to gain back our audiences, right, for all the things that we're being filtered and, fragmentation of all the audience. But that's something we can control because we can say we can put in better resources and do it properly, lah. Don't do this kind of thing. Might as well don't do. Just put the money here and then, I don't know,
Okay, now this is serious. So in the interest of time, I will need to end this. But please, the panelists, I'm pretty sure, are going to be mingling around later. If you have specific questions for them, please feel free to approach them. I'm going to have Joshua, who's going to come up and sell a bit of koyo. We sell a bit of koyo, in that sense that it is the interest of RP at the end of the day to position ourselves as a center for CET learning, particularly for our media industry. I think that is what our goal is. Later on, when you have the time to visit the facilities within RP as well, they're looking for a lot of potential collaborations on projects with industry as well. So I'll let Joshua talk a little bit about some of the programs that we are going to be doing within RP. And please talk to them also, because I think this is important in terms of being able to navigate and learning, continuing learning, how to navigate some of these challenges as well. We need some skills, some tool sets and things like that, which I think Joshua will talk. But let's allow the panel to walk and walk down first. Thank you very much.